On this algorithm have me trapped like a rat talking about this lady, okay? And since none of y'all want to watch none of my actual other good content, okay, I have been summoned again, and I've decided that I'm coming here to talk about whether or not this is a traumatic reenactment of 2016. So today I was scrolling along, minding my business, taking my day off, and I came across this tweet saying, "Hey, fellow Swifties, is this what it was like during Reputation?" And I want to let you guys know, kind of, a little bit, but it's a little bit worse this time because this time is death by her own hand, okay? So let's break it all down. I've had this one in the clip for a while, so I finally put it together. And get ready, okay? This is basically, apparently, the possible re-cancellation of Taylor Swift. Let's see. So when the Eras Tour happens, there's Taylor Mania. She's absolutely at the zenith of her fame. Public favor of her is higher than it's ever been. She is at the absolute height of her career. The Eras Tour was a show that everybody wanted to go to, myself included. I went. And everybody's like totally obsessed with her. And people are also at the height of the respect of her artistry because she's just come up out with Folklore and Evermore. And these albums are both extremely well regarded critically, okay? And so overall during Eras Tour, she's doing really, really well. However, during the Eras Tour, there were some small, tiny, tiny cracks that I do want to bring up. One, at the Brazil show, there was a fan who passed due to overheating, and Taylor Nation and like Taylor did not like necessarily directly acknowledge it, other than singing "Bigger Than the Whole Sky" as a surprise song that night, and inviting the family backstage. And also, like, at the Vienna show, a bunch of the Vienna shows got canceled with, like, little explanation due to a possible, a possible threat. And, people were mad at her over that because, like, I don't know, people don't understand, like, the global context and the fact that it's, like, actually dangerous and don't remember what happened to Ariana Grande. So I didn't really understand why anybody was mad about that, but I do want to at least bring up those small, tiny cracks that began during Eras. I would say, though, that the biggest crack started when she started effing around with this clown, okay? So basically on Matty Healy's birthday, she announces to the public that she and Joe Alwyn have broken up, and also proceeds to do this like kind of crazy mean girlish pap walk with like Gigi Hadid, Blake Lively, and I think Ryan Reynolds was there too. They like are all photographed going to dinner, and then right after the dinner they all like unfollow Joe Alwyn. Shortly thereafter, he's like photographed looking extremely disheveled with this like sad picture that they have of him right here, which I feel even bad even posting. And it's all in order to attach herself to Matty. They do this like weird thing where they're like saying, "I loved you" on stage. But the thing is that Matty is a lightning rod of controversy, okay? This guy's incredibly problematic. He has so many controversies. It's actually innumerable. I can barely name them. But the ones that really came to the fore during that time were he like called Ice Spice like kind of a bad word for like, Eskimos. And he also admitted to watching certain types of materials that involved like brutalizing Black women. I remember those being the things that like really, really pissed people off and upset people and disgusted people. I would say like for me, I was definitely disgusted by that, but I don't know. I'm not like the dating police, but like that was not great. But there was a real aspect of her fan base that like really wasn't having it, to the point where they came up with this like speak up now, like basically like movement, where they like made a petition, an open letter to Taylor Swift about how she shouldn't be dating somebody who is against the values of like inclusivity, empathy, and like understanding. And it just creates like a lot of pressure on the relationship, to the point where eventually what happens is that Matty Healy like ghosts her, and he later comes out and says that it's because like he couldn't handle the pressure of like all the scrutiny he was under, like being attached to Taylor Swift, okay? So but this incident, I think, creates a level of tension between her and her fans that starts to fester, and I think that has come to a real head with Life of a Showgirl, but starts to fester in Tortured Poets, but we'll get there. Before we get to Tortured Poets, though, we got to talk about this Olivia Rodrigo controversy. This happens like before Eras Tour and before everything. It's not like that well publicized. Like not a lot of people know about it, but it starts to come out a little bit more. I feel like I found out about it like around the Matty Healy relationship time. I've gone over this before, but basically what happens is that Olivia Rodrigo comes out and says that she was inspired to do like a quote Yelly Bridge like from Cruel Summer in Deja Vu, and subsequently Taylor's team, or Taylor, basically demands credits, and takes 50% of the royalties. So 50% of the royalties goes to Olivia's team, and 50% of the royalties go to Jack Antonoff, Taylor Swift, and St. Vincent. St. Vincent, I think, has subtly distanced herself from the thing. She co-wrote Obsessed with Olivia Rodrigo. She gave her this Variety Award that I talk about in one of my previous videos. Look at my playlist. And yeah, like this is not something that she like really wanted to be affiliated with. Also, Paramore ended up also getting credits for Good For You. But Hayley Williams herself has actually come out and like distanced herself from it too. Like when they were asking about it, she said something like, "Oh, my publisher's like wilding right now." Like she was like not really happy about it. But anyway, this is something that like really is not good for her reputation. Because it's like giving like honestly like Nicki Minaj vibes, right? Like basically Olivia Rodrigo, to be honest, and I think that I don't think this is a controversial opinion to say that she's the heir apparent, okay? If anybody's gonna be able to like have the legacy that Taylor Swift has or surpass her legacy, it's gonna be Olivia Rodrigo. She is preeminently talented, she's a great writer, and she really is a voice of a generation. Like the way the kids respond to her music is one of a kind. I went to her concert, it's one of a kind. It's a very, very unique thing. And so it really felt like Taylor Swift was trying to like oppress basically like the youth. And then on top of it, I feel like she made it worse by like aligning herself with Sabrina Carpenter, who like literally essentially her claim to fame was being the other woman in Olivia Rodrigo's like whole story. And then also Gracie Abrams, who's like a less talented, non-threatening version. You know what I mean? It was very much giving Nicki Minaj, Cardi B vibes, and it was not cute. Okay. So that was another like not great thing in her reputation. Okay, so then I think that one of the like worst moments for her overall would be the 2023 Grammy, 2024 Grammys. I'm so sorry. Yeah, 2024 Grammys. So she uses her moment when she wins Best Pop Vocal Album, instead of like thanking the Academy and being excited for the fact that she won a Grammy, she basically uses that as a moment to announce the Torture Poets Department, okay? And a lot of people in the industry are like really off-put. There are these Miley Cyrus, Ed Sheeran, and Olivia Rodrigo make these like totally hilarious faces, and a lot of people in the audience are like, "Girl, what? Like this is not a time for like self-promotion. It's like the Academy, the Recording Academy celebrating the Grammys. It's like the highest award in music. Like how are you possibly making this about yourself?" And so that really kind of like was off-putting to people. On top of it, she like when she won Album of the Year for Midnight, she like forcibly pulled Lana Del Rey on stage and like, you know, thanked her. It was kind of awkward. People didn't really like that. And then also was like perceived to like snub Celine Dion, which, you know, I don't know. These things seem kind of weird to me. I don't really think that they were like that big of a deal. But I think that like the Torture Poets announcement really did rub a lot of people the wrong way. Okay. And I feel like that really was like the biggest crack that has kind of metastasized into the problems that we're having right now. Okay. So let's talk about the Torture Poets Department, okay? Torture Poet Department comes out. You know, the Swifties eat it up because it's like rich with a lot of lore, talking about a lot of her relationships and like whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm sorry to say, the album was defensive, bloated, and joyless. Listen, the fans who like it, but a lot of people don't. I wouldn't even necessarily classify myself as like a casual fan, but I just think that the album was too long and she didn't edit it and it was undisciplined. And there's some really like truly bad songs on there, and there's songs that just like show poor character. There's songs like, you know, But Daddy I Love Him, where she's basically lashing out at the fans who did the whole like Speak Up Now campaign and like resulted in her and Matty breaking up. There's like Who's Afraid of like Little Old Me, which is like very like solipsistic and like kind of narcissistic navel gazy, where it's like, "Oh, you were last a moment in the asylum where you raised me." It's like, okay, go cry about it, poor billionaire, like whatever. And then I think worst of all was the whole Thank You Amy song, where she's talking about, you know, she says like, "My mother is a saintly woman, but she wishes you were dead, and one day your daughter is gonna come home singing my song, and she's gonna know it's about you. You're not gonna know it's about you." When talking about Kim Kardashian, which to me, girls, like, just like, baby, like, grow up. Like, I don't know. Torture Poets was not a good look, I would say, and I would say that like maybe her fans liked it, but in the eyes of the general public, she lost many, many points. Okay. What makes Tortured Poets, though, even worse is all these damn variants she kept releasing, okay? There is an online calculator that counts how many variants, tracks it on Discogs. She has released 85 variants of Tortured Poets Department. Like, girl, are you good? Are you okay? I think that like the reason why she's doing this is because honestly, I think she was like really mad at her Swifties. And she's like, if y'all are gonna ruin my life, I'm at least gonna milk you for every dime that you're worth. And I really think that the Swifties need to get that through their head. Like, this girl is getting revenge on you. Like, she does not like you, girl, okay? Anyway, so she keeps releasing these variants, even though the album is like critically panned. It's like, girl, nobody likes this album. Like, stop trying to force it upon us and like forcing it to be number one, even though it's not having the cultural relevance. At the end of the day, no matter what she did, Brat was a number one album last year. It just was. There's nothing that she could say or do about it. But one thing that she did do about it is that she purposefully blocked Billie Eilish from hitting number one for Hit Me Hard and Soft by releasing like 3 or 4 variants like right on top of her because of a perceived slight when Billie said something along the lines of like, I don't really like how people release variants because I think it like promotes waste and makes fans waste money. And so she like attacked her by like, you know, releasing variants on top of her album to block her for number one. Very petty, very annoying, very mean girl. Nobody likes that. And then also when Charlie came out with the Brat vinyl, after Brat like really had taken off, she blocked Charlie from number one in the UK by releasing like 4 UK only variants. Like, so this is all very like mean girl behavior. It's like pissing off the general public. Like, people do not like this stuff, okay? Another thing too is that sometime during the Eras tour, it gets announced that Taylor Swift has actually reached billionaire status. Initially, people are like kind of positive about it because like people are like happy with Taylor, and you know they really like Taylor Mania was still like very rich, and they like talks a lot about how like this graphic that I have like way down there talks about how a lot of her money really does come from music and it doesn't come from like really other businesses. Although like, you know, 100 million of her money comes from like properties and like, you know, holdings and things like that. But at the end of the day, though, as people get more and more like the eat the rich kind of uh sentiment rises, like people become more and more and more and more critical of the idea of her being a billionaire. There's like this like Instagram that forms called like Taylor Swift like tracking or whatever, that eventually Taylor Nation like sues to get him to stop posting about her, that tracks her like carbon emissions and shows that she's like a really heavy private jet user. So people really criticize her heavily for that. And, you know, generally speaking, like, you know, obviously being a billionaire, like billionaires are like ruining our society. So, you know, it's not a good look. Okay. And hey, it gets worse, okay? Because now people are mad at her friends too, okay? So the whole "It Ends With Us" controversy explodes everywhere. Like I don't know, when did it start? Last summer, last fall, when "It Ends With Us" comes out. So essentially, to briefly go over it, because I haven't talked about it in ages on this site because I just can't with it. But anyway, what happens is that Justin Baldoni's company gets the rights to the book "It Ends With Us" by Colleen Hoover. Blake Lively is cast as the main character, Lily. Somehow, some way, she like wrestles control of the movie away from Justin Baldoni and like bullies Sony into giving her control of the movie. And then eventually, during the campaign, people notice that there's some kind of fallout, and people are really mad at her because she's not acknowledging like the whole like domestic violence component. She eventually sues Justin Baldoni and accuses him of doing this like negative smear campaign against her, when really what was going on against her was actually just like organic people actually just being mad at her. Okay. Taylor Swift gets dragged into this because this really cringe tweet comes out where she says that Ryan Reynolds, her husband, and Taylor are like, I'm Khaleesi and they're my dragons. They'll slay anything for me. Ah. It's like so weird, so creepy, and so cringe and gross, and it really pulls Taylor Swift into the controversy to the point where like the last thing I heard is like Justin Baldoni's like had one of his like lawyers like in order to subpoena Taylor Swift was like jumping over Travis Kelce's fence at like 2 a.m. Like, girl, I don't the whole controversy is a total mess, but I would say it is a definite net negative for Taylor Swift's reputation, and she doesn't do any favors for herself by talking about how she likes her friends canceled, okay, on Life of a Showgirl. Also, she starts hanging out with the wags, you know, and people don't like Brittany Mahomes. I don't really know much about that lady. All I know is that she's MAGA, and I heard that she's like kind of vapid. So, you know, people are really criticizing the people who she's surrounding herself with and like starting to talk about like, is she a mean girl? Is she this? Is she that? You know? And I'm not going to go over with you guys why the Life of a Showgirl was a problem, okay? Like, watch my other TikToks, like, you know what I mean? Obviously, I really feel like the Life of a Showgirl really has been, like, a tipping point. The tone of the album is, like, pretty antagonistic. She's already released, like, 31 variants of the album, so she's, once again, like, financially extorting her Swifties. It's loaded with, like, these dog whistles and, like, microaggressions towards, like, Kayla Nicole, you know? Then there's, like, this controversial necklace, which I guess has apparently finally been pulled after they tried to solve the problem by having black models wear it. It's crazy. She's tone deaf. And then posting pictures with her black dancers from the Eras tour. Like, I can't with this. Like, I really can't. I'm so sorry. And then it's also loaded with these like trad wife, like this trad wife, like I want the whole block looking like you type nonsense. Like I'm a little princess, save me from a tower type stuff, like in a really weird and fraught time in our society. And then obviously then she's doing the diss track against Charlie XCX. If you want to hear more of my thoughts, watch my TikTok. Like, you know, I'm not going to go over this, but this is very much a tipping point. People are really mad, okay? People feel used, they feel drained, they feel insulted. And also the music is not even that good, girl. I'm just saying, the album is mediocre. I feel like the production's not good. The lyricism's not good. The songs, there's like no real standouts. Like, girl. And like, yeah, okay, it sold 4 million. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. I'm so glad you broke Adele's record from an actually good album. But at the end of the day, at what cost, girl? At what cost? 31 variants and your soul? Like, what is that about? Anyway, I don't know if y'all know this about me, but I'm actually like a little bit of an astrology girly. So I was kind of looking at the common transits that happened between like 2016 and now. And something that happened both in 2016 and now is in 2016, there were 2 Pisces eclipses. Taylor Swift's birth time is not confirmed. There's some talk that says that she's a Capricorn rising, but I can't, but the point is like, I don't really know what her rising sign is, so I can't tell you what house the Pisces eclipse is occurring in. But nonetheless, what does Pisces eclipse mean? Pisces represents illusions, fantasies, kind of like fake veil, like kind of fake veils. And an eclipse in Pisces would represent like the collapse of illusion. I think in 2016, the collapse of the illusion of her as like the sort of like America's sweetheart, nice girl, got collapsed in favor of people seeing her as kind of a duplicitous, like mean, like, you know, literal like snake. You know what I mean? And this time, I think it's like in 2025, the idea of her being like this relatable person who is the everyday American girl who everybody loves is being collapsed by the fact that she's like, honestly, like a typical greedy billionaire. So that those masks are falling off and falling away. And I think that last time, I think the problem with Taylor is that when it happened the first time, she really didn't learn her lesson, okay? I think that when she got canceled the first time, she blamed a lot of it on like Kim and Kanye because, to be honest, like both of them are kind of freaks. Like, I'm just being honest, like, you know what I mean? And they did a lot of like really weird stuff. Like that famous video was like disgusting. And, you know, Kim really did chop and screw that video. So she really could paint herself like as a victim. But if you watch my video, that's not what happened. She did not just get canceled because of Kim and Kanye and Snakegate. She got canceled because of a constellation of actions that she took, okay? And it is very similar this time, where she has been spending 2 years pissing people off. And you know, the thing is about cancel culture is like, can someone like Taylor Swift really ever be canceled? The answer is no. Okay, she's always going to be rich. She's always going to make money. She's always going to have a fan base. But the public sentiment towards her, I feel, has turned in a way that feels remarkable. And I haven't seen the sentiment turn against her in this way since 2016. It does feel very similar, and it does very much feel like a traumatic reenactment, but this time it might be more damaging because the blade has been she's cutting her reputation with her own hand. That's what I think. Anyway, that's the thing. The universe is going to reteach you lessons until you learn them, girl. And if you don't learn them the first time, you're going to learn it the hard way the second time. And I really think that that's what's going on. So in conclusion, do I think that this is a reenactment of the things that went on in 2016? Yeah, in a lot of ways, except this time I think it's worse because I think that there is no Kim and there is no Kanye to blame it on this time. The only person she got to blame is herself. All right, this was a long one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Goodbye.